What's going on, everybody? My name is C4. Welcome back to more C4, dusting off the channel here as we enter the month of April with the NFL draft a month away. It is time to the original reason why this channel was created, to give me a place off my main YouTube Madden channel to just talk about the Philadelphia Eagles and what you guys are going to be getting for the next month. We're going to get weekly mock drafts. I'm going to break down my player rankings as it relates to the Philadelphia Eagles as well. And I appreciate each and every one of you that has still remained subscribed to this channel, even though the uploads have been essentially non-existent since last year's draft. The reasoning, if you do follow the main channel, you do follow me on social media, I have shared. You know, I started my whole YouTube journey over on the main C4 channel with my brother, and it's been a year that he's been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And I think the easiest way for me to kind of explain it is that I always want to make a go of this second channel. But my main channel is my 9 to 5, and anytime I've had time to upload and get consistent with this channel, kind of just view it as like overtime. And during this whole, you know, just like world-crushing experience with him going through that, I just haven't had the time, effort, energy to kind of put in the work and get that overtime in. But things are looking a little bit better right now. So now that we enter the month of April, it is time. Like when you're in spring and you got to do that first lawn mow and you're cranking on the cord to try to get that mower started. You hope it starts. That's what we're doing here today. We are back on more C4 channel. I'm cranking on the thing to start the lawnmower, and we're hoping that we get a little traction, starts putt-putting, and then we can redline this sucker and mow the lawn. So we're starting it today with a 7-round Philadelphia Eagles mock draft. I've already pre-recorded as I go through kind of like my big board. I think players that should be targets of the Philadelphia Eagles. So if you guys want to see that, that will be coming. I'm going to be spreading it out over the next, hopefully we just get into that consistent upload schedule. But I'm going to say at bare minimum, I'm targeting for 3 videos a week on this channel, if not more, if not daily uploads for a little bit, because we're inspired, because I'm ready. I'm ready to start talking about the draft. But what perfect way to kind of kickstart this all with our first 7-round Philadelphia Eagles mock draft. Now, it's April, so you guys didn't have to sit through me doing junk mock drafts, pre-free agency or during free agency. The dust has settled. We have clarity. All right, so let's start the mock draft here. And this is such an interesting year to do mock drafts for Eagles content. I feel like the last couple years we've been in a spot where it's like the same 2 players. You got to try to just make different videos justifying these different 2 players. Depending on what mock draft site you're using, there are so many different variables that could be available at pick 23. So we're absolutely not trading with the Jags. Okay, now, the first thing I'm going to get into is a potential trade back. Philly has shown historically that we're willing to deal. I think back to Lamar Jackson, where the Baltimore Ravens traded back up to get into the first round to get Lamar Jackson. I always negatively remember that trade because I thought we should have took them to town. The fact that we did like kind of a fair trade for both sides. We should have bent them over a little bit more. We knew they were coming to get Lamar. We didn't do it, is what it is. I think teams that may want to come up here and try to trade for this man right here, Ty Simpson, if you're looking into the 20s of teams that could deal, this would be the team that you'd need to leapfrog. A bunch of the other teams, I think the idea is like, yeah, let's trade back into the last couple picks of the first round to get Ty Simpson so you get that 5th-year option. Absolutely. But the reality is, Philly could be the team that has the hot pick because so many teams are going to be worried that the Browns could potentially select him at pick 24. So I think if we get a nice ransom here, that would be, I'd be willing to deal. I'd be willing to check it out. Unfortunately, in this mock draft scenario, we did not get that. So, just something to be aware of. I think when we look at the wide receivers, I like Omar Cooper. I think, I liked him more when he wasn't a consensus first-round pick, but there's certainly a player in there, and if it's a foregone conclusion that on June number 2 of this year, we are going to be gone in A.J. Brown, Omar Cooper makes a lot of sense, I think, in the first round. Except my worry with Omar Cooper is that, you make that pick assuming that, like, oh, A.J. Brown's gone. He's not A.J. Brown. He's not built like A.J. Brown. You look at his production. I think he absolutely can play on the outside, inside-outside versatility, but in his most productive year in college football, predominantly a slot wide receiver. So I think, honestly, there's a lot of sense and argument could be made that if we keep A.J. Brown, you still could have value with Omar Cooper. He slots right in the middle between A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Omar Cooper. That could be your wide receiver core. And then, ideally, I think most of us are optimistic. Let's see A.J. Brown and Sean Mannion's system. If things don't work out and then the trade deadline, and you have to get, maybe a little creative with Omar Cooper and play him a little more on the outside, I could get down with that. Or if the plan is to trade A.J. Brown next offseason, which I could get maybe a little bit more in line with, You have a year of Omar Cooper in the building, understanding, getting confident with Jalen Hurts. I think that makes a lot of sense. Given the board of players that are available, I could get down with Omar Cooper. Ooh, Kenyon Sadiq available. I wish he had a little bit more reliable hands, but we've shown in years past when we had Zach Ertz breaking records, we drafted Dallas Goedert in the second round to be a successor. Have that consistency in the room. Is it time that we Dallas Goedert? We Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert, if that makes sense. We go out and invest. Kenyon Sadiq at tight end. I think Sadiq could play a little bit of slot for us. I think he's not solely, the argument of getting a offensive tackle in the first round. He's like, well, do you really want to make a pick that redshirts a year or redshirts X amount of years, depending on if Lane Johnson plays what if Lane plays for 3 more years? So many people want Lane Johnson's successor. If he doesn't retire, what are you going to be like? Lane, can you leave because we need to justify this first round pick? Now, we did this and got a tackle, and Lane gets hurt, and this tackle is better than Fred Johnson. I'll take the L. I'll hold the L on this one. But there's way too many variables this year, especially with no more Jeff Stoutland, for me to want one of these project tackles and feel confident about that pick. If Stoutland was still here and Stoutland was pounding the table for Caden Proctor that he could fix him, he could put him on Jordan Mailata's diet and succession plan, okay, I could buy into that. But with the current landscape of the Eagles, I would much rather, if we're kind of going red shirt, get a backup eventual successor role, I think Sadiq makes a lot of sense. I think offensively, you look at the best of Sean Mannion, the Green Bay Packers, they've had a lot of that offense goes to the tight ends. So if he's going to be here long term, getting a long-term blue chip athlete at tight end with a lot of upside, and he can block, right? Eli Stowers is a popular name, but Eli Stowers is pretty much a big slot wide receiver. Kenyon Sadiq can block. That's what you want in a Dallas Goedert success. You don't just want a one-dimensional player. But then the argument can be made, like, could you get an Oscar Delp a little bit later on, like a value pick that can actually develop? It's an interesting topic for Philadelphia. We got an interesting board of players that are available here. You have Veg Ione at guard. Now, the issue with this pick is, I'm playing the mock draft game here, is that I've seen Pregnon available a whole lot in the second round. Now, in real life, obviously, you got to kind of throw this out the window. I don't think there's a gigantic difference between Pregnon and Ione, and that's a compliment of Pregnon, because I think Ione is one of the safest players in this year's draft class, arguably the safest. Day one starter, you bring him in, he starts over Tyler Steen at right guard. But I also think Pregnon, day one, starts over Tyler Steen. Powerhouse. This guy's built like fucking Blastoise. If he's still, I would say in hindsight, and I don't know if we're going to get this hindsight, but for the sake of this mock draft exercise, if we could go someone else and then get Pregnon in the second round, I'm going to be happier with that start to this draft than going Ione in the first round and then whoever's left in the second round. That might be a gamble we may need to take. We will see. But I think if Ione's on the board at 23, Philly's probably running that pickup because he's such an upgrade over what we currently have in the interior. And that's not necessarily a huge shot at Steen. He was far from the biggest issue on the offensive line last year. I think it would be very rare for Philadelphia at this spot to go first round on defense again. I think they need to kind of shift towards getting these cheap, hopefully high-end, cheap rookie talent contracts on the offensive side of the ball now after so many years of having on the defensive side of the ball. But after getting rid of Sidney Brown, I'd be down getting another Canadian here and Akeem Mesidor on the team. We look at corner, We look at safety. They're both gone in terms of McNeil Warren, who I think is a better complement to Drew Makuba than a Dylan Thieneman would be, even though Dylan Thieneman of the two safeties is the only one that has first-round traits from an athletic profile standpoint. I like other safeties, though. I'm a big fan of Jalen Kilgore, who I think Philly has shown some pre-draft interest in. So we will revisit that. I'm saying if this is the board right now for Philadelphia, I would go Kenyon Sadiq. Now, there's not without worry. Kenyon Sadiq has some worry with that selection. As I'm not, those trades suck. When you look at how you can utilize Kenyon Sadiq, he had a lot of reps within the slot. I think that's where you could view him as an Eagle contributing with Dallas Goedert on the field. I think you could have them both on the field at the same time. I think if you view him as a slot, the fact that he has the athleticism, he'd be one of the most athletic receivers on the team, wide receiver or not. 4.39, that vertical, his power, his explosivity, 6'2", 241. Like, I actually wonder if we move him. I'm not saying that he's a wide receiver, but if you move him to wide receiver here, just out of curiosity, like, I bet you it's not a significant drop-off on his RAS because he's going to get it. Okay, now that this is just, okay, this is incredibly niche, But if you kind of view him as how he gets on the field is going to be lining up in the slot, this is now what you're dealing with. Now, his hands need to get a lot more consistent. But I think for how much Philly requires out of their wide receivers to block and get dirty in the run game, which how many times do we get frustrated with either a lack of effort from A.J. Brown or a, why the hell are we asking a 170-pound soaking wet Devontae Smith to block? It is something that we just do. So now you actually bring a legitimate blocker. Go look at Kenyon Sadiq's highlight reel. Maybe, again, consistency is probably the big buzzword for Sadiq, whether or not he's a first-rounder or not. If the draft class was stronger, had more blue-chip traditional players, is Kenyon Sadiq going in the first round? Maybe if a team falls in love with his athletic profile, but it seems pretty much consensus this year because it's a weaker class that he is going in the first round. How I would view it for the Philadelphia Eagles is I think you absolutely could put him in the slot when you want to have Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown on the outside. Let's go up here a little bit. Can I move this down? How do I move this down? There we go. I think you could do that. And for how much we ask these guys to block, I think he could do that. Line up at one, has the athleticism to win. And I think the biggest picture in this is if you're viewing him as a successor. We need to get Dallas Goedert's successor at tight end. Tight end's always going to be prevalent, especially if we're going to commit to kind of the Sean Mannion system going forward. You need to get a tight end that can block, that can do the dirty work. And Dallas Goedert was at his best. He was so underrated as a complete tight end. A tight end that can catch, a tight end that has a highlight reel catch one-hander in his bag, and also be a willing blocker. Now that we've kind of had Dallas Goedert on like back-to-back one-year deals, he's suddenly forgot how to block as much. But I think Sadiq, as a successor for Dallas Goedert, for what he can also do as a slot wide receiver and versatility, lining up all over the offense, I think that's a really good pick for Philadelphia. As we get into the second round, we're going to go at guard, and we're going to run up to the podium, getting Oregon Ducks here. Emmanuel Pregnon, who I think absolutely will be an upgrade over Tyler Steen at right guard. At worst, it gives us our cover because it seems like out of all the offensive linemen, I know so much discussion around Lane Johnson. I wouldn't be surprised if Landon Dickerson, given his injury history, would be like the most concerning of linemen to not return. There's already rumors this offseason that he could potentially be a foot at the door. They restructured his contract. I think the writing might be on the wall a little bit more there. So adding cover at guard makes the most sense, and or outright an upgrade at right guard. I think that's exactly what you get in Pregnon. He comes up with a 916 RAS, not freak of nature RAS, but 916 is certainly enough to talk about. He was the number 2 rated guard by PFF last season, left guard. So, I mean, you know, that whole discussion point of like, can a left guard can play right guard, and linemen discuss it as like trying to wipe your ass with the opposite hand. But I think we could probably plug and play. Like, this guy here should be able to learn the different guard spot. If not, again, worst case scenario, he's a Landon Dickerson successor. Maybe you don't love the value of getting that in the second round, but I think if we're looking at improving the interior of the offensive line, which I think most of us can agree on, given the board that was available, doubling up on the Oregon Ducks here, I mean, this is already, like, I absolutely agree with these letter grades. This would be a borderline A-plus start to the draft for the Philadelphia Eagles. Next up in the third round for the Philadelphia Eagles, I'm going to go with a projection here, and I'm going to take a look at Keionte Scott. Very old. We are now in the business. No thank you for the trades here. Look at these available offers. Nothing ruins a mock draft more than making 70 trades and having 100 picks on day 3. We're going to view Keionte Scott here as a safety. I think you're getting, obviously, age concerns, right? You're getting a guy that can contribute right away. He's 24, 25. I believe he'll be a 25-year-old rookie. But when you watch Miami during that college football playoff run, I believe he came back, it was like a suspension or something. It was like day and night when he got out on the field. You look at the athletic profile, 5'10", 193. If I can't get D'Angelo Pons, I want Keionte Scott. 4'3", maybe not as explosive as you would like to see, but he has dog mentality, which is, you know, what is that really? It is quantifiable. There's just certain guys that have that. So from an athletic standpoint, he checks off. He has experience right behind the webcam here playing box safety. You can complement that. Have Andrew Makuba play, you know, high free safety. Have him play in the box. Not really saying that this is a Reed Blankenship successor, but sure as shit is a huge upgrade over maybe the athletic limitations that we saw with Reed Blankenship. He has versatility as well to kind of play up in the slot. 89.6 PFF grade, 2 INTs. Gave up 0 touchdowns on the season. 69.9 passer rating is not the best, but he's playing his best football. He's an older player, which is certainly, 24.6. But as you can see, tone setter of the run defense, so that definitely projects well to his safety projection. Really good in zone coverage, which has been something that, like, primarily Vic Fangio will. I mean, it feels like last year we went to a little bit more man, but I think he could be a safety in this scheme and system and just upgrades the athleticism of that back end of the defense. I think looking at the players that are available, I think Julian Neal's another one of these corners that might be a safety at the next level. I think when you look at the actual safeties, Jalen Kilgore still being on the board, that's an interesting call because I also really do like Jalen Kilgore, maybe more natural of a safety, but I don't know. I think maybe you just get overall a little bit more versatility with Keionte Scott. You get a day one starter in Keionte Scott, which is what we need right now, especially looking at this roster as a whole. Safety was, without a shadow of a doubt, the biggest concern for the Philadelphia Eagles. So either Scott or Jalen Kilgore, I think I'd be fine with that selection. The next pick in the third round, I'm going to be looking here at wide receiver, Bryce Lance. Now, I know North Dakota State might bring up some PTSDs when you bring up that school for Philadelphia Eagle players, but I like what Bryce Lance brings as an athlete. As an athlete here, a 9.95 for a RAS score, 6'2", 4'34", 41.5-inch vertical. The broad jump was good. The agility grade's not too shabby. Not, you saw enough from an agility grade to assume that he's just not that straight line. A lot of people want to comp Christian Watson. It's kind of a lazy comp. You're kind of scouting the jersey a little bit, but there are a lot of similarities. But I think Bryce Lance, more of a hands catcher than a body catcher. I think the big thing that's kind of held back Christian Watson taking this game to the next level is his inconsistencies with his drops, stuff like that. I don't think that's going to be a huge issue for Bryce Lance. The number one thing I like about Bryce Lance is that when you get into like the advanced nerd analytics, a stat that I've kind of been keying in on is the amount of yards gained when you're going up against zone defense. So much of the NFL is zone defense, and there's only a couple players in all of college football for the wide receiver position that are like zone winners. And I guess, yes, the level of competition, that's always going to be your knock against this selection. I can't convince you otherwise. But Bryce Lance, with this athletic profile, also one of the best wide receivers at winning versus zone coverage. And a lot of times these wide receivers that are winning versus zone coverage, those are like your smaller, shiftier slot wide receivers. In fact, this guy is built like this with this athletic profile and can win against zone. That is more than enough for me to go, okay, you're going to be our guy. You're going to be our project player right there. You're going to offer deep threat ability, which clearly we want with Hollywood Brown. But we got him on a one-year option, so Bryce Lance can be that long-term deep threat option ability. And I just think that there's a lot of underlying stats that if he's going to be more than just a gimmicky player that offers like one style, one thing to the offense, I like the underlying stats to maybe develop him into more than just that deep threat. Now the fourth round, here's where I think you take a swing at an offensive lineman. Now, popular pick, usually available here that I was kind of hoping I could target, is Austin Barber, Florida Gator. You know how Howie Roseman probably wants to add more Gators. He's a name that I would consider at this point to be a developmental tackle. I do think the weirdest thing that I can't get a read on with the Eagles is they drafted Miles Hinton in the 6th round last year. They drafted Cameron Williams in the 6th round last year. I have no idea what the perception of the team is on these two guys because these are the developmental tackles. In a way, these guys are certainly entering their name in the list of successors potentially for Lane Johnson. But then with them bringing back Fred Johnson, it's like, okay, do they really trust these guys? How far along are they in the development? Are they washes? I have no idea how to interpret the young tackles on the Eagles, so I'm just going to assume that we need to continue to add to that position. I'm going to look here at Trey Zuhn III from Texas A&M. Was one of the higher regarded tackles as a recruit at Texas A&M. I think when he went out and tested, it certainly raised a little bit more eyebrows. He went out, put up a 9.96 RAS, and this is not just like scouting the RAS, just put the highest RAS here on the offensive line. We have no more Stellan. Maybe we're going to have to shift a little bit. And he didn't put up agility testing numbers, so that also plays a part. He's likely not a 9.96, but I do love the 33 reps on the bench press. Arm length, not really a problem, just under 33-inch arms. You love the explosion grade. You love the speed grade. When you take a look at how he's played, I mean, he played center this year, played a little interior, has been predominantly a left tackle. So you're getting a guy that has athletic ability, that is willing to be versatile and shift all over the offensive line, which gives him a little bit more value because he's not going to be a starter over Mailata or Lane Johnson. But the more hats you can fill on an offensive line when you're a depth lineman, the better shot and the more versatility, the more value you're going to be able to bring to a team. So I see a guy that has that versatility, that if you can kick out from tackle to center, I'm sure you could probably go into guard. And you have an undeniable athletic profile. That is absolutely the kind of swing I feel comfortable taking in the 4th round for the Philadelphia Eagles. I think next up in the 4th round, again, Keionte Scott, I'm penciling him as a safety. I'd look at Daylen Everette. Keep that pipeline strong with Georgia. I think you get the boom bust potential if Tariq Woolen. Like, that's kind of the known reason why he's available. I think that's the reason why Daylen Everette is available. Boom bust. Looking like that in college is never a big-time bonus, but I think there's good value there. There's solid value. If I'm the Eagles, we saw again, when our depth was tested, I think Kelee Ringo's a fine special teamer. That's probably about it. Jacorian Bennett, we got Mac McWilliams. There's just not a lot of depth if one of our guys went down. And I think with the opportunity to get another swing at a Georgia Bulldog, right? When you take a look here at Daylen Everette, the RAS is off the charts, a 8.98. He comes out here as we let the site load up here. He has pretty good arm length, 4.38 at 6'1", 196. Vert, explosion grade across the board, not too shabby. He's not one of these players when you're looking at like some of the value. These are guys that most likely are going to be nickels. He's an outside corner, 600 reps last year on the outside. You have a guy, 69.7 PFF grade. I mean, for whatever that is actually worth. Gave up 38 receptions on 68 targets. Gave up 3 touchdowns. Only had 1 pick. Had 3 picks a year ago. I mean, you're just getting a guy that's needs refinement, needs development. How are we going to continue to develop these DBs without Christian Parker on the roster? That's definitely, maybe not talked about as much as the miss of Jeff Snell on the offensive line. No more Christian Parker in that secondary. That will be something that we need to monitor. But I think for, like, when you get into this spot, I'm taking swings. You're into day 3 of the draft. Daylen Everette, I think I'd rather see, like, what he can do if he has to get thrown on the field than what we know we've seen with Jacorian Bennett and Kelee Ringo. Plus, Georgia Bulldog, Howie Roseman ties makes a lot of sense. So the final 3 picks, it's kind of, at this point, getting players that I like. I'm going to start on the D-line here. I'm going to go Zxavian Harris, the D-lineman from Ole Miss. Here's why. I think there's other targets I want if we're viewing adding a D-lineman here as someone that could potentially be that, like, Moro Ojomo successor. Assuming that we can't afford Moro Ojomo, you want that interior, undersized pass rusher, big athletic ability. Unfortunately, none really left on the board. I think, like, Caleb Proctor. I think maybe Landon Robinson from Navy, like another guy that kind of fits that profile type. But I think when you look at Zxavian Harris, you're getting an incredibly unique profile at 6'8", 330 pounds. Now, the big thing for me is when I watched Ole Miss play, I didn't even really know who the hell this guy was. I was like, who is this monster that's putting pressure on the quarterback consistently? Like, he was from the interior, the most impressive player on Ole Miss last season. And then you go look at the tail of the tape. It's like, all right, 3 sacks. But his 18 pressures is right up there with, like, what I watched when I was seeing him. It's like, okay, so this guy here is built like, I remember, like, Daylen Walker from Kentucky last year, which is like, all right, this is just a gigantic, weird, alien human being. And then this guy here, for whatever reason, man, brought enough juice to be notable when I was watching Ole Miss from the pass rush. So I'm like, okay, 18 hurries, stacks up well to some of these all, like Landon Robinson at, like, he's 5'11", 187. He had 22 hurries. I definitely think, like, he could be in consideration. Capart, who's the big Raz guy. I think he's like 9'9" Raz. Like, okay, well, what'd he do? And he's like, okay, 7 hurries. He had 1 sack. So, like, the eyeball that, Zane Durant, underrated. Like, this is a guy undersized. He's going in the 4th round. People talk about the pass rush ability. Less hurries. Yes, he had a couple more sacks, got to the quarterback, got to finish, seal deal there a little bit more. But, like, I think when these guys aren't 6'8", 330 pounds. So I kind of view Zxavian Harris as an incredibly poor man's Jordan Davis. But I think when you get into this range, like, that's the kind of thing you want. That's the kind of depth you want, especially, the vanilla gorilla Ty Robinson doesn't take his game to the next level. Like, who do we have as that run stuffer? We're going to continue to expand what Jordan Davis can do to the defense. You still need your niche players. You need your guys that come in and just affect the run. I think Zxavian Harris can come in and do that role well. Oh, we give Vic Fangio something fun to work with. This is just, like, I'm almost putting on my Madden hat here for a second. Let's go Eric Gentry. I think adding a little bit to the linebacker room wouldn't be the worst thing that the Philadelphia Eagles can do. And Gentry, Philadelphia kid, this is just, I don't know what he's going to look like in the NFL, but I'd like to see what Vic Fangio can kind of figure out. Now, when you're getting at this spot, these are guys that are, like, mostly going to make the roster for special teams, or they have something unique about them. If you don't know enough about Eric Gentry, well, his PFF chart is, like, all over the place. 668 stats, 72 grade, which is not too bad, especially for, like, how not great and consistent that USC defense is. 56 pass rush snaps, 314 run defense snaps, almost 300 coverage snaps. Don't love 15 missed tackles, but wasn't an issue in years past. Played way less snaps, but, like, even going back to 2023, the missed tackle rate, you hope that that's kind of an outlier here in 2025. D-line, slot player, box player. And it's like, okay, well, like, what the hell? What else stands out about this guy? Well, he has 35-inch arms. His wingspan is unmatched. He is 6'6.5". 221 pounds, ran a 4.5 40. 4.5, that 9's doing a little, we're going to admit that he's 4.5 in the 40-yard dash. Agility grade, so like nothing, like I don't know, and I don't really recall players of this profile being able to run like a 6.76 3-cone. His explosion grade is great. Like, so this is an athlete that has literally, I don't know if there's a comp for a player like this. Like, what actually we have, like, I've never heard of any of these guys for an actual comp. So you're just, like, you're getting international players at this point that have never played football. The fact that this guy has a lot of football played for USC over the years, you're in that spot of the draft where it's just like, what the hell? Let's see if we can find something special. I think bringing the Philly kid back at this spot just for linebacker depth. We don't have, it doesn't have to be a hit, unfortunately. This is where you take the swing. We feel pretty decent about our linebacker depth, even losing to Kobe Dean. What if Gentry? What if Vic Fangio can find a way to get this guy a role in the NFL? And I wouldn't put it past Vic to be able to do that. This could age well. And for our final pick, I'm really just looking for value at this point. Who is the best player available? I wouldn't be surprised if Philly tries to get a backup quarterback, but with the names that are available, maybe you take a swing on Kate Klubnik and hope that you can figure it out. Tell you what, though, Nick Singleton still be on the board. Is that even realistic? I'd probably, the running back room for Philly there's depth. Saquon, clearly RB1. Tank Bigsby, we all want him to get more carries. You bring in Dameon Pierce, power back. Will Shipley's solid. I don't think, it sucks when you see Will Shipley out there because it means, for some reason they're not using Saquon or Tank Bigsby. But, you do a lot worse than Will Shipley, the 4th-round pick in 2024 is your RB3. But I think you can make the argument Nick Singleton, who, if this was a mock draft a year ago, might be the first running back off the board, still available in the 6th round. Looking at what else we have here. We haven't added a pass rusher, a pure pass rusher. The guy that's the big name right here is Michael Heldman. He's a guy that's just like kind of the hipster in a way. You look here, we go, and we just want to search for pass rushers from this year. This Heldman guy, for what it's worth, if you're trying to find a guy who could maybe be the next Max Crosby, right? Small school pass rusher. How did this guy fall through the cracks? This Heldman dude, so he puts up a 9.9 RAS. Again, the RAS not the be-all, end-all. It just gives you a measurement for the athletic profile. Great elites, 29 reps, everything, 9.9 RAS. Okay? And then when you go to the PFF big board here, when you look at Heldman as an edge rusher, so you're going, okay, small school player, big-time athlete. What is the catch here? There's got to be some sort of catch where it's like, okay, well, maybe not the production doesn't necessarily maybe track with his athleticism and maybe, ABC reasons for why these athletes. So he's 23, a little bit older. Oh, he's just the 2nd highest graded pass rusher. He had 12 sacks and 36 hurries. So I'm going to call me just, just scouting the numbers here. I haven't seen a whole lot. We need a pass rush. Let's just see if this guy, and I believe they've showed interest. I don't know if they've met with him. I believe the knowledge. Fuck it. I'll go with the guy. I'll trust the nerd stats. I'll trust the athleticism when it comes to that selection. Michael Heldman, you are the final pick of the draft. Couple fun swings here with our last 3 picks. 6'8", 330-pound pass rusher that's shown some juice to get after it in the interior. 6'6". I don't think the comp exists at linebacker. And then we just go with the guy that analytics said should be a goddamn first-round pick. That yes, he went to Central Michigan. I've never seen a second of him play. I'm going with the analytics. I'm going to trust. They're like, hey, 6th-round pick. All these things, I'm going to gamble that they're not all wrong. And maybe this could be a guy that sticks on the roster for special teams and can develop to a player for us long term. But there you go, fellas. Here on More C4, that is officially our very first Philadelphia Eagles 7th-round mock draft. I'm going to have one of these every single week. I'm going to base off your guys' feedback. How do you feel about my logic in deciding and making this draft? Is there players that you want to win in a different direction? Definitely let me know in the comment section below so I may be able to pivot. Maybe I'll take your guys' information and apply it to our next mock draft. But thank you guys very much for watching. If it's your first time stopping by, don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button. Smash the like button if you enjoyed. A lot more draft content coming again. I'm gonna target. I'm gonna say it's a very attainable target of at least 3 uploads here every single week, if not more. So stay tuned. Thanks for the support of the channel. And until next time, it's your boy C4 saying peace out. Love ya. Have a good one.